Hello friends, welcome back to Fitness Matters. We've been talking about how to deal with lower back pain. In that regard, we talked about the importance of first activating your core, then doing some core strengthening exercises. Now in this video, we'll be talking about one of the most important stretches you can do to eliminate lower back pain, and that is stretching your hip flexors. Now why is this so important? The hip flexors are basically a group of muscles that cause flexion at the hip joint. So essentially when I'm lifting my leg up like this, I'm causing flexion at the hip joint. Now we all know where that position occurs. When we are in the seated position, we are doing that same motion. We are causing shortening at the hip flexors. Now when the hip flexors are shortened over a prolonged period of time, it causes a forward pull in our lumbar spine. It is just the lower back. So that forward pull on our lower back causes a condition known as anterior pelvic tilt. In many people you can see, when they stand straight, they look like this. They have a more pronounced arch in their lower back. That pronounced arch in the lower back causes tremendous forces on the lower back. That excessive forces leads to severe back pain. That is why many people today, if you have that posture, it's most likely that you are going to face back pain in near future. So let's do something about it. That is a situation which can be easily remedied by this simple 5-minute stretch daily. It actually doesn't even take 5 minutes. You can probably do it in 3 minutes if you are quick about it. So let's get down to it. Now before we talk about the stretch, there is one fundamental mistake everyone is most likely to make when they are doing it. That is not tilting your pelvis posteriorly. I'll show you what that means in a second. So we talked about anterior tilt, which is the more pronounced arch. Now this is posterior. Anterior, posterior. So what I'm doing there is I'm squeezing my abs and squeezing my glutes at the same time. So squeeze your lower abs and squeeze your glutes. Squeeze your lower abs, squeeze your glutes. Now I'm in a posterior. This is anterior, posterior. So this posterior tilting is the opposite function of what the hip flexors are doing, and that in itself places a stretch on the hip flexors. So while doing any hip flexor stretch, first get into the posterior tilt and then go for the stretch. This is Anand Menon and you are watching Fitness Matters. Now this goes without saying, but if you are new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my videos. Also, if you enjoy this content, please hit the like button and show your support. To stretch the hip flexors, there are two main movements. Like I said, it's not one muscle, it's a group of muscles. So one single movement won't suffice. So the primary hip flexors is the iliopsoas. So to stretch the iliopsoas, the movement is as follows. First, get down to a kneeling position. Then place one leg in front of the other, like in a lunging position. Okay, so we are doing lunges. So we get into this position. Now, like I said, the golden rule, what is that? You need to tilt your pelvis posteriorly. Okay, just by doing this much, just by maintaining that posterior tilt, you start to feel a stretch in the hip flexors over here. Now what we need to do is rock our hips forward, maintaining this posterior pelvic tilt. Maintain this tilt, no arch, maintain this tilt and move forward. You feel a really deep stretch in the hip flexors. Now hold this for about 10 seconds. Then relax. And once again get into the posterior tilt, move forward, rock your hips forward. If you feel a really deep stretch, you're really feeling it over here, and then relax. That stretch will be enough for the majority of us. Now, if you have been doing some form of hip flexor stretch for a long time, you won't feel it that much. So for that few of you out there, what we need to do is get into this posterior tilt and rock forward. Then what we need to do is bring your hand close to your ear and move your torso to the opposite direction, like this. That definitely brings out a huge burn on your hip flexors. That gives a really deep stretch. Okay, so hold for 10 seconds and repeat it 5 times. Now for the other leg. For the other leg, if you want to stretch your left side, what we need to do, place the right leg forward. Right leg forward. Now again, bring it to the posterior pelvic tilt. Squeeze your glutes and squeeze your abs. Now rock your hips forward. Now if you're not feeling the stretch here, bring your hand closer here and move your torso to the opposite side. Now I'll show it to you once from the front view. If you're trying to stretch your left leg, bring your right leg forward, posterior pelvic tilt, rock forward, rock your hips forward. Now, if you want a deeper stretch, move your torso to the opposite direction of the leg you're trying to stretch. I'm trying to stretch my left side, so move my torso to the right side. That brings a deep stretch. So what the routine is, hold the stretch for 10 seconds, then relax. 5 times each side. Okay, that concludes the first movement. Now for the second movement, what we need to do, we are focusing more on the rectus femoris, which is nothing but our quads. You know, the quads, which we train a lot in the gym. We try to get it bigger. We try like hell to get it bigger, but we mostly neglect the stretching part of it. Now let's get down to stretching our quads. Now the second part of the stretch is for the rectus femur. Now to stretch this muscle, what we need to do is get into this position, in a kneeling lunge position like before, and get your leg up above a surface. In this here case, I have taken a standard workbench. You don't necessarily need a bench. You can do it by your bedside, on a steady chair or any such surface. Just make sure it's steady. The surface itself should not move backward and fall down. If you are taking a lightweight plastic chair and keeping on that, it may fall down and you may fall backwards. You don't want that. So take a heavy object and then place your leg above it. The leg which you want to stretch, place it above it. Okay. Now, like I said in the psoas stretch, for this stretch, for any hip flexor stretch, first bring your pelvis to a posterior pelvic tilt. Just by doing that, you feel a great stretch on the quads. Now, to really feel a deep stretch of this place, what you need to do is try to bring your glutes as close to your heel as possible. The more further behind we try to bring it, the deeper stretch you feel. Yeah, we feel a really deep stretch. Now hold that for about 10 seconds. You feel a really great burn here. I swear, if you're doing this for the first time, you probably feel like your quads are going to tear apart. Okay, relax. Hold for 10 seconds and relax. Okay, like that, do that 5 times on one leg, and now for the other leg. Bring the leg you want to stretch on top of the surface. Top of the surface. Okay. Now bring your pelvis to a posterior tilt and then stand up straight and try to bring your buttocks towards your heels. You feel a really good stretch. Relax. One more time. Posterior tilt and bring your buttocks close to your heels. Hold, hold, hold. Relax. Same 5 times on both legs. Okay, folks. That concludes the stretch of the rectus femoris. Now, although there are other muscles involved in the hip flexors, these two are the primary hip flexors. So, stretching this will ensure that your hip flexors do not get shortened and we can avoid anterior pelvic tilt crisis. Now, before we end this video, I'd like to mention one more thing. Try out these stretches and mention in the comments below how you felt. If you are unable to perform them, if you're having difficulty performing them, leave your comments below and I'll show you a simple alternative stretch for this in another video. This is Anand Menon. Thank you so much for watching.